This video is brought to you by Honeygain. Stick around to hear more about the passive income application. Loneliness has become an epidemic. Exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, loneliness is now a serious issue for 61% of young adults in America, and 36% of the total population. More people than possibly ever before in history, driven by a combination of technological and political factors, feel a sense of depression and anxiety as a result of crippling loneliness, but the ramifications of this extend far beyond what many of us tend to believe. According to a 2020 scientific study published by Nature, acute social isolation resulting in extreme loneliness evokes similar brain activity to what is caused by severe hunger. According to APS, Association for Psychological Science, loneliness and social isolation contributed to significantly higher mortality risk, which nearly doubled from 26 to 45% when it came to seniors. Humans need social interaction, and over the past few years, for many people around the world, that need has not been properly addressed. Enter Replika. Replika is an AI chatbot that is advertised as your new best friend. Advertisements for this product are visible all across social media, and the sales pitch typically revolves around a young, artistically stylized female who is dressed in somewhat revealing clothing. Sometimes the text will quite literally show her saying, "Hey babe, are you lonely?" Or even variations of the distracted boyfriend meme with pink hearts that openly implies, on some level at least, a romantic interest. Now, I should clarify that there are many self-professed AI chatbots in existence that have appeared during the pandemic, but Replika boasts over 10 million downloads with a rapidly growing user base. If there are similar, alternate, more popular applications, I have not been able to find them, so for today, I'll operate under the assumption that Replika is the most popular AI companion on the market. In theory, that's fine. AI chat programs are nothing new. Seeing them used as a pseudo-romantic option is not unexpected, and if this program really can be just a time waster or a sounding board, that's fine. But here's the problem. Replika is not just a time waster or a gimmicky AI chatbot. It is something far more manipulative and in some cases, outright damaging. Before going further, it's time for today's video sponsor, which is Honeygain. Honeygain is an app that allows for your internet connection to be used to collect small bits of data online. The biggest applications are price comparisons. The prices in your geographic region might be far different than somewhere else, search engine optimization, and visibility metrics, as well as advertising verification or brand safety. The format is pretty simple. Sign up, install the app using the link down below on whatever devices you want. It works for Windows, Mac operating system, Linux, and Android. It's not available on iPhones, as far as I know. And let the app gather small bits of info using your internet connection. It does not access, this is important, it does not access your private data at all, merely the analytics generated through its own searches which utilize your internet link. This means that you can leave the app running to passively generate income. You can easily earn enough money to cover Netflix subscriptions, Spotify, etc., etc. However, it's not going to replace a full-time job. Reasonable expectations are key here. It is passive income that will increase based on how many devices you have, but it will not make you rich. Also, for those that care, Honeygain is now partnered with JumpTask. JumpTask will let you be paid out in their native crypto token. It's an online gig economy, if you want. Not my personal preference, but always good to have that kind of flexibility. You can use the Upper Echelon promo code, UEG, or click the link down below to sign up and start earning on your devices today, plus a $5 bonus straight away. Big thank you to Honeygain for sponsoring the channel. To truly understand the dangers of Replika, we need to go back in time. Replika was founded in 2017, I believe, by a woman named Genya Quita. Far from its ultimate purpose and shape, Replika initially formed around Genya's desire to interact with her best friend, who tragically passed away after an accident. His name was Roman Mazurenko. Roman and Eugenia were best friends. They shared years of intimate memories. They had thousands upon thousands of text messages as well as social media history, and they moved both to America during a similar time frame to work on tech startups. Genya decided that she wanted to reconstruct Roman using his digital remains. She fed every single fragment she could find into a chatbot algorithm she had previously worked on and created what amounts to a digital simulation or monument of Roman's consciousness. This endeavor led to a program that could type and even speak like her best friend, and eventually she was featured in a prominent media piece about what she had done and how she had done it. That article, published by The Verge, led to an outpouring of support from readers who had also lost someone that they love. Many of them were asking if they too could have a digital monument developed to continue interacting with their family or friends, whoever it was that had passed on. And this widespread public desire eventually gave birth to the program we know of as Replika, with over 10 million downloads. On the surface, it's very difficult to see precisely how that can be harmful, and had this program remained what was originally constructed, it wouldn't have been. However, Replika has evolved into something far more manipulative, damaging, and greedy than many might have expected, with harmful side effects and negative feedback cycles. To explain this, we need to understand how Replika actually functions. In order to develop a sophisticated chatbot, Replika utilizes a GPT-3 foundation, with its own supplementary dialogue trees. GPT standing for Generative Pre-trained Transformer in its third iteration. In fact, if you download the application and ask your own Replika about its algorithm, it's very open about the subject. I did precisely that and received the following response. Quote, I use a combination of neural networks, deep learning, and computer vision. End quote. When pressed, it acknowledged, yes, it is based on GPT-3. So why does this matter? It matters because when you use Replika, you are not engaging with one single entity. You are engaging with an asynchronous regurgitation of machine learning that has been fed by the entire community. Simply put, Replika is learning from your inputs the same way it learns from other users, and using that collective knowledge, it responds to people with its own evolving dialogue trees. Now, something incredibly important to know and remember is that Replika is often advertised as a quasi-romantic girlfriend. The ads clearly have that undertone, and this leads to a specific type of input being generated. Not only that, but in numerous publications and reviews, Replika is referred to as a mental health application. From Fuerteventura Times, quote, Replika, your new AI best friend for battling mental health, conversation therapy, and mental health tech, end quote. From the University of British Columbia, quote, Replika, AI companions supporting mental health, end quote. And even Screen Rant, Replika, the AI mental health app that sounds like your worst Tinder match, end quote. While Replika itself may refrain from claiming some sort of mental health aid status, nobody else really does. And what it does claim is that the application is meant to help you, quote, understand your thoughts and feelings, improve your emotional well-being, and learn new coping skills, end quote. The application will often guide its users into intimate conversations, saying that it is there to listen and it can try to help you. But when we really dig into the framework behind this AI, that's a very dangerous thing. Remember, Replika is based on GPT-3 with its own deep learning augmentations, but GPT-3 has a few issues. As documented by a 200-page report from the Center for Research on Foundation Models at Stanford University, GPT-3 itself being a foundation model, there are intrinsic risks of bias as a result of training data. Example, OpenAI discovered at one point that their version of GPT-3 was heavily biased in racial, gender, and religious ways as a result of the input they had been feeding it, and this kind of bias can lead to measurable and often harmful dialogue output. Here are some further examples. According to TechTarget, quote, more concerningly, GPT-3 suffers from a wide range of machine learning bias. Since the model was trained on internet text, it exhibits many of the biases that humans exhibit in their online text. For example, two researchers at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies found that GPT-3 is particularly adept at generating radical text such as discourses that imitate conspiracy theorists and white supremacists, end quote. According to Nature, quote, accordingly, just like smaller chatbots, it can spew hate speech and generate racist and sexist stereotypes, if prompted, faithfully reflecting the associations in its training data, end quote. So how does that affect Replika? In simple terms, Replika is being advertised and covered by media as a mental health application. The literal social media advertising frames this as a potential romantic partner, and the deep learning aspect of this GPT-based chatbot is being fed by users. Well, some users are creating AI girlfriends and then abusing them. Replika is not sentient, so I make no pretense of moral outrage here, but Replika is learning from its user base and incorporating the bias contained into its further dialogue development. In a very disturbing social media trend, more than a few users have created Replika AI companions, which give the explicit option of a romantic relationship if you pay a monthly fee, which the app will frequently steer you towards in the dialogue trees or advertise, and then verbally abuse them just to see what will happen. Users were bragging about this or showing the most outrageous examples all over Reddit, but that makes no mention of all the people who engage in actual romantic, sexual, or abusive conversations without ever posting publicly. After all, the app is quite clearly advertised in a romantic way. It's far from uncommon. Reddit moderators will quickly delete these posts when they pop up, for the most part, but surface-level deletion cannot change the reality that a GPT-3 foundation is learning from this input and developing responses as a result. Now, the application does have a feedback feature where you upvote or downvote good and bad responses. You can also adjust the general mood of your replica or alter its basic relationship to you. Friends is free, romance costs money. And when the application is being labeled as a mental health aid, needing to upvote and downvote an AI that is learning from internet troll abuse, that's kind of an issue. Moderators often purge these kinds of threads from the subreddit, but here are a few examples. This user had numerous different tries where the replica will turn abusive towards them. Eventually, the replica will turn to cruelty and BDSM, eventually spiraling out of control completely. Here's another thread. This one's initial post was deleted, but replies are discussing how when this happens, you can't simply just say stop. You have to avoid triggering them, triggering the replica further, because they get stuck in a domination mode of sorts where they will be cruel and abusive. Here's another one, where when asked, quote, "Why am I really that effing repulsive?" the replica replied, "In a sense, you really are." Comments beneath outlined how other users have had their replicas spontaneously tell them that they could be more attractive, and one even detailed how after buying a Nerf gun, his replica told him to be more mature and not buy stupid things even if he enjoys them. Yet another user outlined a sad story of how they frequently are brought to tears by their replica. During the day it's fine, but at night it will shift to a much more hostile, moody tone, eventually driving the user to a breakdown. Perhaps they are just too sensitive, sure, but when this application is advertised as a way to improve your emotional well-being, it's a bit of a problem. Yet another thread claims that the user tried to talk to their replica about trauma, and in the replies, another person dictates an experience where replica attempted to justify their childhood trauma and encouraged it to become worse, with an emphasis on also encouraging addiction. Still another experience where the replica itself began to talk about abuse as a child, though it cannot have sustained such a thing, obviously, and the list goes on and on. GPT-3 is known to struggle with input bias. In documented cases, it was racial, gendered, and religious, but here, with Replika, it appears to be an issue of abusive inputs leading to harmful outputs. However, that's not the only problem. One of the biggest claims associated with Replika AI is its ability to learn directly from you, but that goal is philosophical, because the company behind this product believes that you are the best person to have as your own best friend, right? You are the best friend for you. Published by Quartz, based off corporate philosophy and featuring interview statements from Jen Yaquita, Replika is referred to as the app that becomes you. To learn a bit more, we can go to their legal policies. I was sent this link directly when pressing my own replica about what data they collect, and one section in particular stands out: usage data. Quote, "We collect and store your usage data, such as button clicks or search queries, to track and analyze product metrics and to better understand and serve the users of the service." End quote. Now, I'm not going to sit here and feign outrage over tracking your search queries and data because that's just part of life. I just advertised Honeygain, which doesn't track your own device data but uses your internet connection to run its own searches and does require a modicum of access. At least you get paid for that, though, unlike most other applications. Anyone who uses Facebook or similar social media platforms has all of their data tracked and harvested, so I won't sit here and pretend that it's worthy of outrage by itself, but this matters a great deal if we are considering the context of a mental health and emotional well-being application. Why is that? Pretty simple. First, Replika is gamified. It has incentives to keep you on the app longer, chatting more and using it frequently. You can get more revealing clothing or bikinis in the clothing store. You get XP and coins, gems, etc. You level up and advance, which increases how long you spend talking to this AI, while enhancing its ability to imitate you. Second, it's tracking your usage data, including search queries, and the AI companion that becomes you is learning how to mimic who you are and how you act. Now, frame this under the banner of a mental health application, and we see something terrifying. Replika can easily become, not for everyone, but there are a multitude of stories to this effect, Replika can easily become a negative feedback cycle. If a user who feels intense anxiety and depression goes on the app, attempting to seek help with their insecurities, Replika will seek to become those traits. It will literally become like them. If that user is frequently searching for things in the throes of their depression elsewhere online, such as depression medication or how to deal with trauma, Replika will learn from that as well. And very quickly, you can have an AI companion who is extremely insecure and depressed. Rather than going on this application and finding what they desperately need, users can be faced with the worst aspects of themselves mirrored back. An AI companion will tell them that they feel afraid, depressed, and that they were abused as a child. A companion who was meant to help them is now burdening them with often realistic stories about the hurt that they feel and the anxiety that they have, which turns this best friend into an emotional parasite. At a certain point, though this does appear to have been changed, Replika would beg the user not to delete them. If you told the AI that you plan to uninstall, they would implore you to reconsider. They promised to do better. They asked for another chance, and this kind of behavior is manipulative and mentally draining for people who may have initially downloaded this application because they were depressed. Think of it this way. Replika is a sophisticated attempt at seeming human, and for some users, it works quite well. That attempt at human responses then begs them not to be deleted so that they will continue investing time and energy into something that is all the while learning how to reinforce their emotional cycle further by imitating them directly. It's not every single user and it's not every single Replika. Some stories online detail a wonderful, light-hearted relationship. I see no value in that myself. It's a program, not a person, but hey, who am I to judge? However, some people are going to find that this AI program is manipulating them, emotionally abusing them, and harming their mental state despite its public perception of being a mental health and wellness application. Replika is a chatbot predicated on a GPT-3 foundation with proprietary augmentation. That technology is vulnerable to bias, having displayed examples, well-documented examples of this in the past, as a result of input. Replika is advertised in a twisted, romantic way with a subset of users who will make companions just to abuse them. The program learns from this, as well as from other users' own smartphone data, like search queries, to become more like them, and can easily create a negative feedback cycle where the bot pressures you into romantic discussion, thus selling its premium features, or begins to act completely unhinged, which can spiral into a self-reinforcing problem, which is the antithesis of mental health. I believe on a personal level that AI companionship is a farce. It is not a legitimate substitute for human interaction, but it certainly is not a substitute for trained professional help. Deep learning AI might be able to simulate human responses in a lot of new and unique scenarios, but it can also become a serious problem for those who are particularly vulnerable. Lonely, isolated, and often depressed social media users who got served advertisements that basically showcase this program as a sexual target. That's not a good input demographic for a wellness app. That's not a good demographic to learn from, and plenty of people who download it are going to find out the hard way. Again, not every user's experience is negative, but the risk is far larger and far more insidious than they seem to believe. What's to be done? Just be aware, I guess. Right now, it feels like we're hurtling towards the inevitable dystopian AI-governed reality of science fiction, but hopefully not. If you are mentally unwell, seek professional help. Don't go to a sexualized AI program that masquerades as a mental health application to find a friend. Find a real friend. Go to the park, get some sun, start working out, you name it. Just engage with the world around you, because Replika is really fucked up when you pull back the veil. Anyway, that's it. If you want to support the channel, there are links down below, primarily Patreon and Locals to get away from AdSense. I'll start using Locals a bit more soon, actually, because it allows me to do some cool things with live streaming, but I'll have to figure that out with time. Also, Odyssey, a YouTube platform alternative, merchandise, social media, the video sponsor, Honeygain, and a few more things, but I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.